Right, the news has just broken that the live-action Zelda film adaptation, which has been in the works for a while in some form or another, hasn't it, Alex? It's officially on the way. It's being produced by Sony. It's probably going to be one of the biggest films of whichever year it comes out in, because Zelda's huge. But I think it's got a problem that the Mario movie didn't, and that is the same problem, funnily enough, that the Uncharted movie had, where Uncharted is already based on a bunch of stuff that already exists. So the Uncharted movie is entirely superfluous. Like, the best Uncharted movie is one of the Indiana Joneses, whichever one is your favorite. And it seems entirely pointless to adapt that back into a film. It's sort of like how we've got 19 different versions of The Producers, going back and forth between sort of musicals and film, right? But so surely the Zelda film, the perfect Zelda film, already exists in some form, because it's based on a bunch of Studio Ghibli stuff and everything else. What do you guys think?
I was just going to say, I hadn't thought of the Uncharted comparison, right? Where that Uncharted film is okay, but it's not even the best fake Indiana Jones film, because The Mummy exists, and even probably National Treasure exists.
Yeah.
And funnily enough, same producer, right? Same guy. So
yeah, it's true. Yeah.
So it's the same guy facing down that problem. But I guess, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because Zelda is sort of a composite of fantasy genre tropes. And what's interesting, actually, you think about the games have changed a bit over the years as the fantasy genre has changed. You think about Twilight Princess, right? The realistic, down-to-earth Zelda. That was partially a response to Wind Waker and to the Zelda art style stuff. But it was also the first Zelda game that came out, it was the first Zelda game that entered full development after Lord of the Rings got huge.
Yeah.
It's not a coincidence.
Yeah, it feels like it's already drawing on those things so much. If you take Zelda back into the sort of film world, it can't really add anything. But we were talking about this before we started recording, about what the best sort of Zelda-like film would be. And Kelsey, you came up with Castle in the Sky, which is...
Yeah, because it already feels like if there was a Zelda film, it would be that film. Because it's very much, in terms of aesthetic, in terms of its narrative, in terms of its characters, it's all very... I can't think of the right word for it. I want to say it's very ingrained in Zelda tropes, but then again, you could just argue it the other way around, and that Zelda's ingrained in loads of Studio Ghibli tropes.
It directly inspired Tears of the Kingdom, right?
Yeah, and then you could even say it goes as far back as Breath of the Wild. Did it inspire Breath of the Wild? The Kingdom of Hyrule and Laputa have all these similarities in terms of their technology, and obviously the fact that Tears of the Kingdom, there is literally a castle in the sky, which is what Castle in the Sky is all about. And even its main characters, you've got this young boy who's very much roped in on this fantasy adventure by this girl, and isn't that essentially what Link does? He's not necessarily roped into it all by Zelda, but he kind of is.
And he doesn't even say anything. He just sort of goes along with it. Which is another interesting problem, because obviously if you're doing a Zelda film, you can't have Link being a silent protagonist, right? You have to
but Mario never spoke.
Chris Pratt to play him or whatever.
I get this argument, but Mario, unlike Sonic, Mario never really spoke in full sentences anyway before the film. So it's giving Link a voice is not that different to giving Mario a voice, really, except there was a slight precedent for what Mario would sound like, because Charles Martinet had put on a specific voice. In fact, the only one of them that really ever spoke, the women did, Peach did and stuff, but the only one of the guys who ever spoke in complete sentences was Wario, because the WarioWare games actually had story. So I don't think it's that much of a stretch. And of course, people don't like to think about it, but we've had a talking Link before. The cartoon exists. Yes, he talks like a whiny 80s teen.
Yeah, another beautiful day in the magical kingdom of Hyrule. Boring place.
And I don't think they're going to go down that path, although inevitably someone will say, well, excuse me, princess in this film, that will happen.
Yeah.
But it's funny because there's lots of different Zeldas, right? So it's what sort of Zelda are they going to make? Because a really you've got the Wind Waker style, and a really interesting thing there is that is the one Zelda that is expressly inspired by a film, where there's a little Japanese film called The Little Prince and the Eight-Headed Dragon, which is in that pantheon of films that sort of ended up inspiring Studio Ghibli and such. And if you look at that film in motion, it's Wind Waker. Like, it is Wind Waker.
Wind Waker is also one of the few Zelda games where you're palling about with Zelda for the majority of it, right? Like, Princess Zelda is actually kind of in it.
Not massive. I mean, so what? You're with Tetra for a while, but then I would say about a quarter of the way through the game, she gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
And then, does she get kidnapped? I can't remember if she does get kidnapped, but obviously, basically, once the reveal happens that she is Zelda and not just a random pirate girl, she then is off the board until the end of the game. But that reveal happens at sort of you've done the early dungeons.
Yeah.
And then that reveal happens and you get the Master Sword and then you have the later dungeons. So it's sort of, similar split to Ocarina, where it's like you have a third of the game and then a big twist. In Ocarina, it's the time travel, and then you have the latter two thirds. But what I mean is, so you've got that. So you could make a film that looks like that. Obviously, it's going to be live action.
Yeah, this is the thing for me. I feel like live action's going to be strange because, as I said, like when I think of a Zelda film, like I'm thinking of Castle in the Sky. I'm thinking of Studio Ghibli's animation style, or even the film that you just mentioned with its like undeniable Wind Waker style. It's going to be strange to see it live action. It's going to honestly remind me more of Peter Pan as a live action film.
Well, so Peter Pan's one of the films that I think it had to have been an inspiration. I'm trying to find, someone dug up a tweet from the guy who's going to be directing this film from 2010, so a long time ago, saying, I think the next Avatar style CG, but done for all the motion capture stuff, film should be The Legend of Zelda. And he tweeted this 13 years ago.
So is that a window into the type of film that he wants to reach?
Well, this is what I mean. So it could be Avatar-esque. You've then got like the Twilight Princess-y, more grounded Zelda. So when we're talking about films that are a bit like Zelda, I put forward a left field thing, where to some degree, Zelda obviously is more family friendly. There's less scantily clad women and less blood. But I put forward Conan. The film. Conan, a film where Nintendo used the theme music from the Conan film as shorthand for what sort of game Zelda was in 3 separate trailers for 3 separate Zelda games. Like there's a connect, and obviously famously they used it in the Ocarina of Time trailer, and then when they did Twilight Princess. And they revealed Twilight Princess, they had the same music and basically recreated that Ocarina of Time trailer. And it was one of those things where people heard the music and people went nuts. And it's really funny, I think, because that wasn't just heralding, we're making a more grounded Zelda after Wind Waker, but it was also heralding, we're going back to thinking about Conan. So I totally put that in the pantheon, which they're not going to make a film like that, right? And I think you look at it and... this director did Maze Runner. Which I don't know if either of you have seen those films.
Doing the new Planet of the Apes, which looks amazing. But
and Maze Runner, they're in that realm of young adult movies. Maze Runner was when everyone was looking for the next Hunger Games or Harry Potter, and when and movie studios were just licensing every bloody, young adult novel series they could get their hands on. But he made. Those films that they were good enough that it was a successful series, and it ended up being ended up as a trilogy, and it starred, I can't remember his name, but the mousy looking kid who's in Human Nature, Family of Blood in Doctor Who. He was the main guy. I can't remember his name, but you know who I mean. Isn't he from Love Actually as well?
Know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Isn't he from Love Actually as well, that kid?
Yeah.
But anyway, he, they had him, and so I think you think about it, and that's the Maze Runner films, completely different sort of plot, but in terms of the sort of film, kind of a Zelda film.
Yeah,
kind of a Zelda film.
I mean, I think Zelda probably does need to be a bit young adult, doesn't it?
I think it will be. At the end of the day, they are young adults now. If they're going to obviously take the plot point of like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and they are young adults, it would make sense to go in that direction.
Never-ending story.
Yeah.
That's another one that I think of.
It's a wee bit Zelda-y, but I tell you what, Star Wars, farm boy rescues a princess who isn't in it for half the film. It's a Zelda film. They've made like it's such a. But the point is that it's such a tropey sort of setup that like you can find parallels with it kind of anywhere.
Well, I'm really fascinated to what sort of film this is going to be, because you think about it, and well, I think we all know what sort of film it's going to be. But what I mean is, the cynical thing to do would be to make a Breath of the Wild game, which is that sort of version of Hyrule, because as John Cartwright, friend of the site, pointed out on Twitter the other day, when Nintendo put their financial results out, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom have sold almost as much as every other Zelda game combined, which is mad. So the cynical thing to do would be to make that universe, because that's the one that people are most familiar with. But I think so that's the head decision. I think the heart decision is to do the Ocarina of Time story, and you find a young kid who can be a charismatic young Link, and then you cast someone that, I hate to say these words, but you cast someone that's Tom Holland-esque, but perhaps a bit younger, to be the adult version.
It's got, I tell you what, like, filmmakers love time travel, and because Ocarina of Time has the time travel plot, I think what we're gonna get is an adaptation that takes bits from like all the kind of really popular games.
Well, that's what Mario was, right? Because they had bits of Donkey Kong and bits of Mario World, and but they held some stuff back as well. So it's like you get one shot of Yoshi's in Mario World, and then the bit at the end, and that's it. And so it's sort of, I think it will probably, but I think the basis will probably end up being Ocarina of Time, because I think about that, and if I was a script writer, you get the 7 Sages, and you can probably have some fun with those characters. There's a couple of funny ones that are good for comic relief. There's a couple of more serious ones that are good for mental sort of roles. Yeah. And if I was doing that film, you know what I would actually do? This is going to sound mad, but I was thinking about this last night. I would have Link be mute when he's a child. I would have the child version of the character not speak, just like in the games, and be this reticent, quiet but brave little kid. And then once he pulls the sword, he's talking and confident and cool. That's what I would do.
I think that would be nice. Yeah.
Then you sort of get both. But yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So I think, it's not necessarily something that's going to revolutionize the fantasy film genre, but it's definitely got all the makings to be a fun little film. And,
I've got one more. Labyrinth.
Oh yeah.
Labyrinth. I was just thinking. I was just sorry.
There's probably going to be a lot of spandex in it if they go down that route. But so like I think that like we said, it's going to be one of the biggest films of the year, surely, in whichever year it comes out.
It'll be interesting, because this is the sort of thing though where if that Mario's a kid's film, this is probably almost certainly, especially now you see the choice of director, they want this to be a young adult film. Yeah, but I think that's a really hard market to crack. And actually, in a weird way, if this ends up, if the production timing is probably what it probably will be, if it's being announced now, might be, I mean, it'll be in a different medium, because that's going to be TV, but it might even be going out at the same time as a Harry Potter reboot. Which is which could suck up all the YA energy.
Zelda's a lot.
Or do
less,
kids not care about Harry Potter anymore? Is it just like sad grown adults?
No, people still care about Harry Potter massively.
Yeah, people do. But what I'm saying is just that young adult market of like 12 to 17 care about Harry Potter, or are the Harry Potter fans now just the people who grew up with it?
I think there's still like a young. I don't bloody know, but I do think there's still a young adult market for it.
Yeah,
and at the same time, I think that even Harry Potter fans wouldn't care if the reboot was catered to young adults. They're just going to lap it up anyway.
And to your point, Jim, maybe we're going up against new Star Wars.
Possibly,
they don't need to worry about that.
Yeah. But it's not a surprise that they're making a Zelda film, but it is an odd one to sort of imagine what the shape of it's going to take. And I don't think the Mario film took a shape that anyone quite imagined, although in retrospect it's probably quite obvious that it was going to be
I think that was pretty much what I thought it would be.
With Mario, it's kind of, you did have a good idea of what to expect. I didn't quite expect them to go as video gamey with it as they did. I think it would be nice to see how they execute that in a Zelda film. But I do see a Zelda film being less video gamey, more action adventure. eat your heart
What's
out.
interesting is the director again was like earlier this year when he clearly knew he had the project was tweeting like footage of himself playing Breath of the Wild or viral footage of that have been uploaded on TikTok, and he was tweeting a lot of the viral clips from TikTok and Twitter and stuff of people who've done crazy stuff with the systems of Breath of the Wild. So it's clear he plays games, he appreciates games. The question is though, does he take from that, oh, I want the Zelda film to have that energy of there's going to be crazy combinations and the items are going to do unexpected things, his weapons are going to do unexpected things.
They have to
Or
have
does
that
he
like
make-
ancient technology in there, surely.
Yeah, or does he make a more straightforward swords and sorcery story?
Well, I think just to kind of wrap it up, I think the Castles in the Sky direction is probably quite instructive because, like, the last couple of Zelda games, particularly Tears of the Kingdom, they have, like, as you say, the ancient technology, these kind of robots cutting about, and it's very like it's a very like heady mix of like high fantasy, but also kind of science fiction, which is like which is what.
Castle in the Sky. I was going to say, Castle in the Sky can even be like related back to Skyward Sword as well.
Yeah.
So,
and the Castle in the Sky has robots and airships and stuff, but then it also has like the swashbuckling sort of like, as a kid cutting about in a flat cap. So yeah, obviously we're gonna watch it when it comes out, and it's gonna be interesting to see which form it takes. But I think some combination of Tears of the Kingdom's kind of mix of fantasy and science fiction and Ocarina of Time's time travel plot, because I feel like that's the most Hollywood ready. It's probably going to be where we end up, right?
I think they can't resist the very literal nature of a coming of age story where the protagonist starts as a child and magically is turned into a cool and confident adult. I don't think they'll be able to resist that.